Everyone seems to understand the dire threat posed by the U.S. national debt, but nobody seems to know what to do about it. South Carolina and Arkansas have avoided similar threats by requiring that their budgets be balanced by way of constitutional mandate. Washington should do the same. After a decade of trillion-dollar deficits, the U.S. Treasury Department recently released data indicating that come 2024, America's going to enter a debt-death spiral. And that's when all the money we borrow going forward will be used just to pay interest on the debt, making bankruptcy inevitable. Sadly, this is exactly what President Reagan warned us about when he said, and I quote, "Runaway government will threaten our economic survival." This chart from a 2019 Treasury Department report shows how much Washington will borrow each year over the next decade. Blue represents spending on federal programs. Green represents spending on interest, and gold represents everything else. Note that the blue disappears in 2024. That is the debt-death spiral, the tipping point at which the debt becomes so large, interest will consume every dollar borrowed from that point on. Can you imagine spending more on interest than we do on national defense? Sadly, that's where we're headed. Without a doubt, 5 years from now, our nation will start an inescapable slide toward bankruptcy. That is, unless we do something about it and do it now. Fortunately, 28 of the 34 required states have called for a convention to propose a balanced budget amendment. Now, this is not the convention of the states campaign, which would include multiple amendments, such as term limits. Our convention is strictly limited to a balanced budget amendment. But if we're to reach 34 states in time, it's critical for South Carolina to join neighboring states like Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee as our 29th state in 2020. Governor Scott Walker and I are going to be visiting Columbia during the legislative session to talk with you about this extremely critical issue. I hope you'll join with us in supporting the call for a convention to propose a balanced budget amendment when it comes up for a vote in 2020. That's the only way that we can preserve the American dream for future generations.